Today I want to talk to you about beauty, the truth about beauty, and what it says about you and what it says about me. And before this video is over, I'm actually going to do a little, I guess what you would call a meditation on beauty. We're going to stare at something together that I find very beautiful, and I'll see if I can't evoke this sense of beauty with you so we can have this experience together. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to kick off the conversation by sharing how I came about thinking about wanting to share this with you. And it came from a very simple little incident. I was walking my dog, which I do every single day, and there was a strange feeling going on inside of me. I'm very conscious of my inner world. It's part of why I can have these conversations with you, right? Because I've paid close attention to what goes on inside of me. And I was noticing that there was this kind of overarching melancholy starting to slip in. And I was just watching it. I didn't really know what it was. It probably has to do with a lot of different things going on in my life. It's certainly an old emotion that I've had I've experienced many times in my life. And it was just I feel like the best way to explain it was trying me on for size. It was like seeing if I was gonna entertain it or whether it was appropriate or something like that. So this feeling was coming on. I'm taking a walk with my dog and I'm very conscious of it. And all of a sudden this very simple and strange thing happened. A beautiful little yellow finch, went flying right by me. And that bright yellow was so stark in contrast to all the green and everything. And it was pretty close, so it startled me a little bit. And the sheer beauty of it snapped me out of that mood 100%. I laughed a little bit, and then I just kind of let that soak in, that experience, that flash of beauty, if you will. And then as I'm walking, all of a sudden I noticed that mood had completely shifted. And I thought, what a gift. What a wonderful, what actually felt like a miracle. Of course, if anybody knows me, you know that I'm kind of prone to seeing miracles. To me, I look around, I think it all is rather miraculous. And the reason that worked for me, the reason that did have that effect, though, it was from a long time relationship that I have with beauty, with appreciating beauty, with appreciating birds, that color, with appreciating that color. My wife and I like to call birds flying flowers, They're so gorgeous, right? There's something, so if you take the moment to open yourself to that, and this one actually kind of imposed itself on me, so I think that's part of why it snapped me out of the mood, So this is kind of the context I want to lay this conversation, or for this conversation, about beauty and the truth about beauty and what it says about you. Before we go any deeper, though, I actually want to ask you that if you enjoy these videos, to please subscribe. Click that subscribe button and hit that little bell notification. That lets you know when I release new videos. Like the video, leave a comment. That would all be greatly appreciated. And I thank you in advance. There's a lot, I almost want to say, controversy about beauty in our day and age, because it's almost like you can't say what beauty is, because your idea of beautiful and my idea of beautiful can be very different. In other words, the things that we find beautiful. Excuse me. But there are things about beauty that are universal. And recognizing the fact that this is true is really important for understanding the power and the purpose that beauty plays in our life. It is an incredibly important element to our life. It's one of those things that has been discussed for thousands of years. The Greeks used to talk about the good, the true, and the beautiful, right? As those three transcendent qualities. And there's something about our modern day, maybe it's busyness, maybe it's cynicism. There's all kinds of potential reasons why, but I feel like maybe we're losing sight of these transcendent qualities a little bit. And when we do, we lose something very powerful, very meaningful, something that can bring a depth to our lives that actually nothing else can. And I always like to think of beauty as a pointer. It's pointing to something. Why is it beautiful? It's not even how important that it is beautiful, if that makes any sense. I mean, that is a huge important part, but what is the secret that lies within the reality that this thing is beautiful? What in me finds this beautiful? We're starting to come into this conversation of what it says about you. Now, I actually don't want to talk too much about this subject. I'd actually rather try to experience it with you. So I'm going to take a minute to set a vase of some very simple flowers in front of this camera, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more about beauty and maybe even a little bit about these flowers. And we'll see if we can't get a greater sense, a visceral sense of what this means, what I'm trying to share with you. So give me a second and I'll set it up. So when I look at these flowers, the first thing I notice, of course, probably is their color, right? The vibrant yellow. The green stems, the dark center that seems to pull you into a whole nother universe. It's like a black hole of beauty. And this is just the start. The thing that's so important about beauty, the thing that we need to recognize in beauty, in beautiful things, is that there are no other flowers in this world that are these flowers. Each one of these flowers is completely unique. I know, I just picked them from my wife's garden. And there were so many to choose from, it was almost impossible. Each one of these flowers is beautiful because it fills a space uniquely, like nothing else could. It holds its own gravity. It holds its own reality. No other flower is exactly like this flower. And when we open to this reality and the profundity of that particularness, we open to the reality of our own uniqueness and our own very specific individual reflection. Now, as I stood in my wife's garden, there were many flowers that looked very much alike. So there's something that's shared, while at the same time, each one has the audacity to be its own unique reflection of this flower, and even of flowers themselves, right? This is true about you too. I'm a firm believer in the fact that we share far more as human beings than anything could ever differ, and yet we are each different, which in a strange way makes us very special. Just like these flowers are special. And as I gaze at these flowers, I open myself to this reality, to the reality that I am not alone, and yet I am the only me. These flowers are not alone, but each one is a reflection of its own specific incarnation of beauty. To stare at a flower like this is not just to stare at the flower either. It's to see the space that holds and allows the flower. Quite often, you'll only get really in touch with the deepest part of its beauty when you notice the space around the flower. When you look almost beyond the flower into its nature, into its truest beingness. And something about the space around it helps you see that and experience its profundity. There's something about beauty that always brings meaning. Something can be meaningful and not beautiful, but nothing can ever be beautiful without being meaningful. And when you open yourself to the fact that there is meaning in this beauty, you open to the fact that there is meaning to life. And where does this meaning come from? Does it come from the flower? Where does this beauty come from? Does it come from the flower? Does it come from the space around the flower? Perhaps it has something to do with it, but the truth is, this beauty, this meaning, comes from you. It's only when you take the time to appreciate this beauty that it is that. Someone else could just trample over these flowers. Someone could spray poison on them. And where would the beauty be then? In a strange way, it would be lost. But if you take the time, if you take a moment to appreciate the beauty, all of a sudden, like a miracle in a way, it presents itself. And the more you open yourself to this beauty, the more that you take the time to just be still, be quiet, and gaze into the color, into the presence of this flower, the more beautiful it becomes, the more meaningful it becomes. And this is actually coming from you, not the flower. The flower is simply the vehicle. It's the stimulus that can stimulate this experience of beauty, but this experience of beauty comes from within you. Doing this at least once a day, and it doesn't have to be a flower. It could be a landscape. It could be your child. It could be your partner. And whether your landscape or partner is beautiful by somebody else's standard doesn't really matter, because if you open up to their uniqueness, to their theirs, to their thatness, that they are, you immediately become present to their beauty. And when you do that, you immediately become present to the meaning behind all things. And you open yourself. You become beauty. You become meaning. And you help usher this in to the whole world. By taking time to appreciate beauty, you bring beauty into this world. As always, I thank you for your time. It's precious.